morning, everybody. I'm Dan Hoffman. I'm really thrilled to be here, and I want to welcome you all to another version of Top 10 Talks. And I'm really excited to be welcoming and introducing our 5 speakers. I think you're going to find this, for those of you who attended some of the other Top 10 Talks, I personally think you're going to find this the best one so far, because it's really some really well-prepared talks. So without going into anything else, I just want to get started, and let's get to it. Our first speaker is Paul Caspersen. Paul is Assistant VP and Senior Philanthropic Advisor here at the Foundation. Just a couple of personal things about Paul. He was actually adopted when he was only 2 months old and was raised on a farm in Iowa. 2013, his journey came to Gainesville, where he and his family came down here, I'm assuming to start his work here at UF. And then he also shared with me, he and Dana have 2 fine sons, the oldest of whom stands at 6'3" and 270 pounds, I believe, and he's only a teenager. So Paul is going to kick this off with his talk on proactivity. Paul?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. For those of you out there are real people here. They didn't bring in that crowd noise there. Thank you. I'm going to talk with you about the first habit of 7 today. By the time that we reach age 35, we are a manifestation of most of our habits. So when a habit is formed, when a new habit is formed, whether that's a good habit or whether that's a bad habit, our brain delegates that so our brain can save its capacity to work on other things. I'm Paul Caspersen, and I'm here to talk with you about the first habit of the 7 habits of highly effective people. So one of the reasons that the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, came out in 1988 or 89, and I believe that one of the reasons that the book has become so popular and timeless is obviously because of the 7 habits that are so rich in their philosophies. If you get a chance to read the book, or if you can read the book, I highly encourage you to do so. But I also believe that the title of the book in the 1980s got us to think about the word habit in a positive way. Most of us who grew up in the 80s, we thought of the word habit as only negative. You could have, a drug habit, or you could have, some other type of habit. It was always a negative thing. But Dr. Covey introduced this idea that no, habits can be positive as well. And here's my philosophy of the 7 habits of highly effective people. First and foremost, to be proactive. Now, I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, especially during the lockdown, I was more in tune to my habits. They were much more pronounced. Maybe it was because each day kind of bled into the next, and I could really pay attention to what my good habits were and what my not so good habits were. But no matter what, habits are like cholesterol. There's good cholesterol, there's bad cholesterol, there's good habits and bad habits. The key is to recognizing the habits that you're doing well and the habits that you can improve upon. So what I want to share with you in my time today are just 3 takeaways, mostly that come from the book, that I want to share with you are my personal experiences. Now, these are my personal experiences. I hope that what this does more than anything is encourage you to think about what this means to you personally. Okay, all of my ideas aren't going to fit for you exactly. If you came into the optometrist and said, Doc, I can't see very well, he or she doesn't say, well, here, take my glasses. You have to find out what works best for you. But I want to share with you 3 ideas from the book that and in my personal life that hopefully that you find can work for you. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about in Dr. Covey's book, in the chapter about being proactive, is this notion of circle of concern versus circle of influence or circle of control. So the general idea here is that the more reactive you are, the bigger your circle of concern is. And guess what? Most of these are things that you cannot control. You have 0 control over. Whereas the proactive person does his or her very best to reduce their circle of concern, thereby broadening their circle of control or their circle of influence. Here's one simple example. So let's say that you have a boss that's dictatorial in their style. Maybe they're a micromanager, and it could be so difficult that maybe you and your other team members lament about, just how, difficult it is with the team dynamics, and When is she going to retire? Isn't she close to retirement age? I can't work for this person anymore. You could be in that position, or you could focus on your circle of influence. So since you can't do anything about that person's work tendencies, your boss, maybe what you could do instead, as Dr. Covey points out in his book, is to really look at your boss's shortcomings and what can you do to help complement that person. So when you start thinking in that way, at least two things are going to happen. One is that you're a happier employee because you're, again, focusing on what you can control in your position. Number two is your boss may recognize you as an emerging leader, somebody that doesn't worry about things that are outside of their control. And maybe, just maybe, they will see that you actually do make up for their deficiencies. So this, I think, is one of the most profound parts of the chapter on being proactive in Dr. Covey's book, and it's very straightforward, and it's something that we can look at every day in our lives, and it can help make a difference in our lives in terms of being proactive. The second thing I want to talk to you about is time blocking. Now, Dr. Covey talks about time management a little bit in his book, but again, that was published 30 years ago. A more recent book that I read by Dr. Cal Newport, a professor at MIT, is called Deep Work. And Cal says that there are two things, if you're a knowledge worker in 2021, there are two core abilities for you to be able to thrive in this new economy. Number one is the ability to master very difficult things. Okay? And number two is the ability to produce at an elite level in terms of both quality and speed. So Cal says that a 40-hour time-blocked week produces the same amount of output as a 60-hour work week. And I absolutely believe that to be true. I'll share with you just in a second what I do in terms of my weekly rituals with time blocking. So on weekly rituals, these are things that I do, and again, I'm sharing my personal experiences in hopes that maybe some of these will inspire you to try to do the same things, or you find what works best for you. So every Saturday, I write down my goals that I originally produced on New Year's Day. So the week between Christmas and New Year's, I'm usually finishing up my goals for the calendar year, and I'm starting to think about what my annual goals are for the following year. Every Saturday, though, from there on out, I will sit down and I will rewrite those goals. Two reasons that I do that. Number one, author Brian Tracy, who's one of the leading experts in goal setting, says there's something magical that happens between the pen and the paper when you actually write your goals down. That may be true. I believe that there's something that's more direct to it, and that is that when you write down your goals on a weekly basis, you are able to reconcile, do my habits match my goals? So I believe that it's more than just simply writing the goals, it's simply taking account for, are your actions speaking for what your goals actually are? Next, I started doing this before the pandemic, getting up at 5 a.m. every Monday through Friday. Another great book I wish I had time to get into by Robin Sharma, it's called The 5 a.m. Club, will tell you exactly why that hour between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. is critical. This is a great time for me to respond to emails, so I don't have to worry about it first thing when I get into the office. I work out usually during that time. Great time for meditating, great time for journaling, and so on. Every Sunday, I prepare for my long run of the week. It's 13.1 miles at the minimum, and when it starts to cool down like it has been, I can get up to 17, 18 miles each Sunday as I prepare for marathon season. Whether I'm traveling that weekend, maybe going to an away game or just out of town for the weekend, I absolutely make sure that Sunday run always happens. If I have to do it on Saturday, I will do that, but that run always takes place. And there's a lot of work at my age to keep your body in shape just to be able to run that much on a weekly basis. And then Sunday evening, I want to talk a little bit about time blocking again, going back to the previous slide. So what I do is one of my most reactive times of the week I used to find for me was Sunday nights. You know, maybe I had a great weekend and I don't want to face everything that's in front of me. It's one of the most reactive times. So for me, what I do is after dinner, I go upstairs and I boot up the computer and I open Outlook and I do my time blocking for the entire week. So that way, when I get up on Monday morning, Monday really honestly feels like Tuesday for me. So psychologically, I can hit the ground running. Now, that's just the first part of time blocking, but it's a very important part. So you can look at what you didn't get accomplished the previous week, carry it forward to the next week, so that when you hit the ground running on Monday morning, your week is pretty much laid out for you. This is a snapshot of some of my books. It's rewarding to go back and reread some of these. I usually don't do that, but that week between Christmas and New Year's, it's rewarding to go back and look at what I've been able to accomplish just simply by writing my goals down. And I believe it's because of the reconciliation of my habits to make sure my habits are matching what I'm writing on paper. Some tips for a daily proactive life. I mentioned, between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., the importance of getting out and getting a workout in. For me, also vocational reading. I try to do that during lunch. Some people will say, well, I don't have an hour to read every day about my vocation. And I would say, as a knowledge worker in 2021, you can't not take that 1 hour a day and find that time to read, to keep up with the trends, to keep up with what's going on in your industry and in your line of work. It's not just about putting all of these things on your calendar, it's also ranking your tasks and making sure that you're prioritizing. I don't wait to make my cold calls until the end of the day. I can tell you that much. It's one of the first things that get done on a daily basis. And then when I'm stuck between things and I don't know what to do next, one of the best things you can do is meditate. It's been said that for every minute you meditate, you get 9 minutes of productivity. Now that diminishes after 30 minutes. You can't meditate all day long. But this is another great thing to do when you're kind of in between tasks and you're kind of not sure what to do next. Traps to avoid a reactive life. Too many tools. I fell into the trap of having too many things like Evernote, OneNote, Dropbox, Box, all these things. I couldn't find where my materials were, my lists were. Went back to one, okay? Keeping your inbox open, hearing that ding, and all of a sudden you're off, you have something you're planning to do, and an email that you just got threw you off into another area. So keep your inbox closed, except for a couple times maybe throughout the day. And then, of course, the social media rabbit hole. If we think that having an open inbox is bad, my gosh, having your notifications turned on during the day can be the death of a proactive person. So I want to finish by saying, be proactive at your most vulnerable moments. I've shared with you what mine are: Sunday nights, first thing in the morning. And one of the most important things, as Dr. Covey finishes his book, is not to say that nobody has mastered all 7 habits. It's a journey. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey, and I hope that you all find this information helpful. If you haven't read the 7 habits, I would encourage you to reread it. It's a timeless book. I would practice habit 1, in this case, proactivity, and then I would monitor and make adjustments as it pertains to you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Paul. That was great. Thanks for leading us off with such a good talk on proactivity.